Hi, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hobbyist Now, your one stop shop.
For all things nerdy and dirty.
That's right, that's right. Of course, I'm Claudian, and this is the great and only Nick. Um, we just ask that you don't forget to like, subscribe, share if you like, and see what you hear. Also, leave a comment. We would love to hear from you.
We're also on Spotify. Our link is in the bio.
All right, all right. We're going to start like we usually do with our news. We're going to go over some interesting news we got today, but we're going to go kind of take a little break from that.
A little
for a second.
sidebar.
Little sidebar, exactly. And we're going to talk about the new Trigun Stampede, which just came out today of the time of this recording and on Crunchyroll. And I actually ended up watching it. Nick, did you see it? Okay.
I can't. I don't like the art style.
Well, I'm actually with Nick on this. I actually may not even watch past the second episode, after the second episode. Also, one of the biggest things I had an issue with is one of the biggest twists in the original show. They just kind of give it to you literally in the first scene, and you're just kind of like, okay, now I have no real reason to watch it because it was all about what is happening and stuff. You didn't even know anything was happening, so now you know stuff's happening and you know what it was, and you kind of already know the key elements. So, but yeah. But we are going to go over to a new subject, anime, actually, for manga, something that we both do actually love, and that's Yu Yu Hakusho. So, in fact, Yu Yu Hakusho is, in fact, currently celebrating the 30th anniversary of its now classic anime series. Can you believe that? 30 years.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
We're old.
We're old, yeah. And the franchise is going all out with some special art of like Yusuke, for example, and the rest of the core group of the fighters. Yoshihiro Tokashi is currently and more active than the creator has been in like 4 long years. Now that he has returned to the pages of Shueisha's weekly Shonen Jump magazine with new chapters of Hunter x Hunter. And it worked out at the perfect time as his previous series is also in the middle of the milestone anime anniversary this year as well. So it's a very big year for him. After kicking off its celebration for the 30th anniversary earlier this year with a special logo and some new character art, Yu Yu Hakusho has continued this even further with some cool new character portraits for Yusuke Kurobara. Yusuke! We always do the voice for him. We love him. Great voice, American voice actor for that character. Hihei Kurama. It is a cool new look at the cast from the classic anime series that really is in actual desperate need of getting some kind of revival. Mirroring Toakishi's own art, you can actually check these cool new designs out at Yokia.
Yuhaku underscore anime at Twitter. And I'll post the handle and everything so y'all can see it.
So continuing with his work, we are going to talk about Hunter x Hunter next. It has been 2 months since the highly anticipated return of the beloved manga series Hunter x Hunter in Weekly Shonen Jump. Fans were overjoyed to see the new release of new characters on a weekly basis, and it seemed like the manga Kai's health had significantly improved. Togashi's decision to bring on more staff to assist with the manga drawings seemed to be paying off. However, according to a recent leak, it looks like the fans will in fact be prepared for another break in the series. A recent leak from upcoming Weekly Shonen Jump magazine, which was released on December 26th, confirmed that because of the mangaka's health issues, he won't be able to provide weekly manga chapters. That's disappointing, and I hope he gets better for health reasons. Hunter x Hunter won't be serialized weekly starting from chapter 401 onward. According to the announcement, Tagashi Sensei will continue to write Hunter x Hunter, and the editorial department will continue to support him until the end of the manga. The official announcement is as followed. Thank you for reading Hunter x Hunter. Regarding the publication of the manga, chapter 401 and following along, we have talked with Togashi Sensei about his state of health, and as a result, we have decided to publish Hunter x Hunter in a format other than weekly serialization. Togashi Sensei will continue to write the following chapters, and the editorial department will continue to support him until the completion of the manga. Specific publication dates and methods will be announced in the future. Issues of Weekly Shonen Jump. Thank you for his continued support of the Hunter x Hunter. And that was, of course, from Shonen Jump, basically commenting on it to him. Another thing you may have all noticed was I was saying Sensei after I was saying his name. It's one of the very few professions still in Japan that use that term. It's honorific, yeah. So besides like a martial arts, it would be your sensei, same thing. So it's one of the very few. So if that was confusing anybody. But we're gonna move back over here to America with some Evil Dead news. Evil Dead Rise. Fans can hardly wait for the newest installment of the Evil Dead Rise franchise in April of 2023. But Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema have provided us with a sneak peek and actually a trailer. Evil Dead Rise official trailer. The red band right now currently, as we just looked it up on Canal.com, the international studio Canal, is sitting at 1.6 million views. And then what do we say? Warner Brothers and the other sites are around 600 to 700,000. So yeah, it's getting some good views. We just watched the trailer before recording. What are your thoughts on any?
I'm excited for it. Didn't care so much for the Mia one, which was like 2011 or something. 13.
Yeah.
But this one looks pretty good. It kind of almost like a much more gory return to form as opposed to the last one.
Let's hope. Yeah, let's hope. But we're gonna move on to to your segment, your favorite segment, in fact, the figures.
That's right. Okay, so we'll start off with Spider-Man, actually. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales action figure, lots of articulation. He will run you about $89.88, and all these figures will be February of this year. I forgot to mention that in the first place. But moving on, we go to Bandai Spirit's High Metal R VF1S Super Valkyrie. They're from
Robotech. Across Robotech, Marcos,
Yeah, and they'll run you about $82.39. Also articulated, I believe it also transforms. It's really cool.
Yeah.
For those who love Robotech or Macross, whatever you would like to call it. Then we have Bandai Spirit's Figure Arts Kamen Rider, great Magnum Boost form. He will run you about $29.96. Very articulating. Just a really cool looking figure in general. Then we have the Kyoto Figure Complex Amazing Yamaguchi number 7 Captain America action figure. This will be a second run figure, so if you were waiting for this, it will be released very soon. He'll run you about $63.67. He looks, at least when you see the picture, I mean, he gave me vibes from Marvel vs. Capcom. He's like super thick and like short. It's really cool looking, actually. And then moving on from figures, we move on to another past episode. I mean, This is a really good year. It's turning out to be. I don't know if it will be yet, but it's turning out. Alien Romulus, a production listing posted by the Film and Television Industry Alliance, has revealed that the Alien film that's set to be directed by Fede Alvarez, who directed Evil Dead 2013, and Don't Breathe, is going by the working title of Alien Romulus, and filming is scheduled to begin in Budapest and Hungary on February 6th. Last month, it was announced that Callie Spaney of Pacific Rim Uprising will star in the film, which is coming to us from Momentum and 20th Century Studios, with Ridley Scott producing through the Scott-free banner. It's being made for release through Hulu streaming service, much like Predator franchise edition Prey, that was released earlier this year. Very little is known what Alvarez has in store for us with Alien Romulus. Alvarez will be directing the film from a screenplay written with his frequent collaborators, Rodo Segues. When the project was announced near the start of this year, it was said that Alvarez pitched this idea for a new Alien movie to Ridley Scott years ago. Whatever the idea was, it stuck with Scott. So late last year, he called Alvarez and asked if he still wanted to make an Alien movie. Clearly, that answer was yes. 20th Century Studios division president Steve Esbell told the Hollywood Reporter that they picked up the project purely off the strength of Fede's pitch. It was just a really good story with a bunch of characters you haven't seen before. The story Alvarez and Segues have crafted for this movie is not connected to any of the other films. I don't know. The Predator film was phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of hate that it gets, but for being what it was amazing. At least I thought.
Yeah. Again, I'm with you on Predator. It was really good. But I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I in my opinion, this guy doesn't have the most strongest repertoire of like previous films. In my opinion,
yeah.
We were just
they're all very grounded if you look at them.
Yeah.
Like Don't Breathe was.
I never seen though. It just didn't appeal to me. Like it was like.
I went on a date and got forced to see it. Oh,
you did see it? Okay.
Yeah.
I know it was good enough. There was another one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, both of us have seen Evil Dead the 2013.
Yeah.
And we have problems with that. So, yeah. So it's gonna be hard to say exactly. Probably wait until we see like possible trailers or at least some production photos, to know what direction they're gonna go. I just want them to do a
continuation.
Alien. No, I just want them. I actually don't like the current timeline. I want them to do an Alien on Earth thing. Like, there's a great comic book series of what happens when it happens on Earth, and they've never touched on it. I don't know why. Well, not excluding Alien vs Predator. I get that. That was but that was kind of piss poor. But I'm talking about straight Alien though, and I wish they got they got their butts going and did that. That would be really dope in my opinion. So,
but yeah, moving on, some video game kind of news. So Steam reaches 10 million, along reaching 32 million concurrently online users. Steam has also just surpassed 10 million concurrent in-game players for the first time. This news was shared by SteamDB, and it shows that the milestones were reached on Saturday, January 7th, where the in-game concurrents were at 10,825,055. And the concurrently online users, those who are just simply on Steam but not actually playing a game, were at 32,186,301. Steam has reached 10 million concurrent in-game players for the first time, as well as 32 million concurrent online users in general. So, as for what these millions of players were playing, the number one game played in the past 24 hours of that was, I'm sure you can guess, Counter-Strike Global Offensive at 1.08 million concurrent players. Sitting behind that was Dota 2 with 766,096. Goose Goose Duck sitting at 605,694. PUBG was sitting at 439,944, and then Apex Legends with a whopping 367,587. These milestones were reached following the holiday season and the end of one of Steam's biggest sales. It also comes at the time where there aren't really any major games being released.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this also has to do with the new streaming culture that's been coming along. So a lot of people are going more towards PC and kind of shying away from consoles because they don't have as much to offer as they used to, at least in my opinion.
Plus, I don't know if they're taking this into account, the Steam Deck.
Yeah, the Steam Deck as well. So, I mean, I'm sure those figures don't really show that. But, I mean, that's just, it's crazy, though. PC has come a long way in recent
I
years.
mean, I give them. I'm glad for. I really am glad for Steam. Steam's one of the only real companies that really have, in my opinion, been the most legitimate company. Like, they did. I mean, they've made some real dumb decisions, yes, in the past, but like, I don't think anything that really tarnishes them as far as like Epic, Epic Games, or
Or any
like
of
or these
those.
old other ones, which are just kind of like pretty much on from day one, just train wrecks. Um,
So, I mean, I guess going from that, we could go
yeah,
from that to.
meat
So, I mean, I guess
potatoes.
it's adjacent cheating.
Yeah, yeah. We want to do the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So today we're gonna actually do something a little different. We are, in fact, going to talk about the Game Shark, but to do that, we got to kind of do a little bit of a history lesson. So bear with us. Hopefully, you find this information interesting. And cheating in video games has basically existed for almost the entire history of gaming. The first cheat codes were put in place for, in fact, for playtesting purposes. Playtesters had the uh, rigorously test the mechanics of a game and introduce cheat codes to make this process easier. An early cheat code to be found in a Manic Miner, where typing in the numbers 6031769 based on Matthew Smith's driver's license enables the cheat mode within months of um, Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlords 1981 release. At least two commercial trainers appeared. In 1983, advertisements for the Great Escape utility for uh, a Castle Wolfenstein 1981 promised that the $15 product uh, remodeled every feature of the game, uh, stop stop startup delays, crashes, and chest waiting. So like when the chest open, you would have go through a whole like wait because the power of the computer back then. Get any item in any quantity, start in any room at any rank, handicap your aim, and even add items for $15 back in '81. That's crazy. For just for this one little product in a computer game, all numeric values are stored as is in the memory. Gamers could reprogram a small part of the game before launching it. In the context of games for many 8-bit computers, it was usual practice to load games into memory and before launching them, modifying specific memory addresses in order to cheat, getting an unlimited number of lives, currency, immunity, invisibility, etc. Such modifications were performed by what was known as a poke statement. The Commodore 64 and the SPC range and the ZX Spectrum also allowed players with the proper cartridge or what was called a multi-face add-on to freeze the running program. Then you entered in the pokes, and then you resumed, and that was how you essentially hacked the game. Some games tried to actually detect this multi-face and refused to load if it was present. The earliest model had the ability, in fact, to hide. Later revisions either included a switch, hid it in the menu, had been opened and closed before loading the game, or automatically hid. For instance, with Poke 47196 201 in Night Lore for the ZX Spectrum, immunity is achieved. Magazines such as Crash regularly feature lists of such poke instructions for games. In order to find them as a hacker, had to implement what was called machine code and locate the critical point where the number of lives is decreased, impacts detected, etc. Sometimes the term pokes was used with a specific meaning. Cheating was ex- exploited. Well, cheating was exploited by technology-oriented players due to the difficulty of early cheats. However, a cheat industry emerged as games systems evolved through the packaging and selling of cheating as a product. Cheat enablers such as cheat books, game guides, cheat cartridges helped form a cheat industry and cement cheating as part of gaming culture. However, cheating was not universally accepted in every gaming. In early gaming, gaming magazine Amiga Power condemned cheaters, taking the stance that cheating was not part of their philosophy of fairness. They also applied that this in reverse. A game should not be allowed to cheat the player. Uh, Guides, walkthroughs, and tutorials are sometimes used to complete games, but whether this is cheating is still up to debate. Later, cheating grew more popular with magazines, websites, and even television shows. One called Cheat, for example, uh, dedicated to listing cheats and walkthroughs for consoles and computer systems. Poke cheats were replaced by what was known as trainers and cheat codes. Generally, the majority of cheat codes on modern day systems are implemented not by gamers, in fact, but by game developers. Some say that as many people do not have the time to complete a video game on their own, cheats are needed to basically make a game more accessible and appealing to to casual players. In many cases, developers created cheats to facilitate testing, then left them in the game as they expanded the numbers of ways people could play it. With the rise of in popularity of gaming, cheating using external software and hardware raised a number of copyright and legal issues related to modifying game code. Many modern games have removed cheat codes entirely, except for when used to like unlock certain secret bonuses. The usage of real-time achievements tracking made it unfair for any other player to cheat. In online gaming, cheating is frowned upon and disallowed, in fact, often leading to a ban. However, certain games may unlock single player cheats if, say, the player fulfills a certain condition. Yet other games, such as those using the Source engine, allow developer consoles to be used to achieve a wide variety of cheats in a single player or by server administrators. Many games which use in game purchases consider cheating to not only be wrong but also illegal, seeing as cheats in such games would allow players to access content like power ups and extra coins that would otherwise require payment to obtain. However, cheating in such games is nonetheless a legal gray area because there is no law actually against modifying software, which is already owned as detained as detailed in what was known as the Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
So the most basic type of cheat codes is one created by the game designers and hidden within the video game itself. That will cause any type of uncommon effect that is not a usual part of the game mechanics. Cheat codes are usually activated by typing secret passwords or pressing control buttons in a certain sequence. Less common activation methods include entering certain high score names, holding keys or buttons while dying, picking up items in a particular order, and otherwise performing unmunitive actions. Some games may also offer debug console that can be used to edit game parameters. Effects might include unlocking a character or improving a character's performance. For example, providing a car with greater acceleration and visual gags such as Big Head Mode in GoldenEye 007. Some games humorously penalize the player for using games cheat codes. For example, using cheat codes in Doom or Heretic give the opposite of the desired effect, such as an instant death instead of invulnerability, or stripping weapons instead of providing them. Unlike other cheating methods, cheat codes are implemented by the game developers themselves, often as tools to playtest certain aspects of a game without difficulty. One of the earliest known examples of this were the Konami code, created in 1986 by Konami, developed by Kazuhiko Hashimoto as he worked on porting the 1985 game Gradius for the use on the Nintendo Entertainment System (NES). Hashimoto is quoted as saying, "The game version of Gradius is really difficult, right? I never played it that much. There was no way I could finish the game, so I inserted the so-called Konami code." Memory editing. Cheating in it via memory editing involves modifying the memory values where the game keeps its status information. The way to achieve this will vary depending on the environment in which the game is running. Memory editing hardware, a GameShark cheat device for the Nintendo 64. A cheat cartridge is attached to an interface port on the home computer or console. It allows the user to modify the game code either before or during its execution. An early example is a multi-face for the ZX Spectrum, and almost every format since has had a cheat cartridge created for it, such as Detail's range of action replay devices. Another popular example of this is the Game Genie for Genesis, NES, Super NES, Game Boy, and Game Gear consoles. Modern disc-based cheat hardware includes GameShark and Codebreaker, which modify the game code from a large database of cheats. In later generation consoles, cheat cartridges have come to be replaced by cheat disks containing a simple loader program which loads the game disk and modifies the game executable before starting it. The legality of this type of device has been questioned, such as in Louis Galoob Toys Inc. versus Nintendo of America, in which Nintendo unsuccessfully sued Louis Galoob Toys, stating that its cheating device, the Game Genie, created derivative works of the game and thus violated copyright laws.
Right, so now we're going to go to memory editing software. The most basic way of achieving this is actually by means of memory editing software, which allows the player to directly edit the mnemonic values in a certain memory address. This kind of software usually includes a feature that allows the player to perform memory search to aid the user to locate the memory areas where known values, such as the number of lives, scores, or a health level, are located. Provided a memory address, a memory editor may also be able to what's called freeze it, preventing the game from altering the information stored at that memory address. Game trainers are special types of memory editors in which the program comes with a predefined functions to modify the running time of memory for a specific computer game. When distributed, trainers often have a single plus symbol and a number apped into their title, representing the number of modifications the trainer has available. In the 1980s and 90s, trainers were actually generally integrated straight into the actual game by cracking groups. When the game was first started, the trainer would typically show its splash screen of its own, sometimes allowing modifications of options related to the trainer, and then proceed to the actual game. In the cracker group releases, lists, and intros, trained games were marked with one or more plugged signs, plus signs, after them. One of such options in the trainer, for example, is the Mega Crew presents Miss Astro Chicken with two plus signs right after it. Many emulators have built-in functions that allow players to modify data as the game is running, sometimes even emulating cheating hardware such as the Game Genie. Some emulators take these methods a step further and allow the player to export and import data edits. Edit templates of mini games for a console are collected and redistributed as cheap packs. Emulators also frequently offer the additional advantage of being able to save the state of an entire emulated machine at any point, effectively allowing saving at any point in a game, even when the save functionality is not provided by the game itself. Cheating hardware such as instant replay also allows such behavior for some consoles. Now we're going to talk about something called code injections. Somewhat more unusual than memory editing, code injections consist of modifications of a game's actual executable code, which while it's running. For example, with the use of a poke command. In the case of a Jet Set Willy on the ZX Spectrum computer, a popular cheat involved replacing 780's instructions with DEC parenthesis HL capital, by the way, and then closed parenthesis in the program, which was responsible for just slightly decreasing the number of lives by one, with a nope effectively granting the player infinite lives. On Microsoft Windows, a common type of video game hacking is through the use of DLLs. Users use a third-party program to inject the DLLs into their games of choice. It's actually like why it's a lot of what a lot of gaming hackers, like and even hardware hackers, do. That's why you got to be careful when you download it. They usually will send you a DLL that's corrupted. So now we're going to go to saved game editors. Editing a saved game offers an indirect way of modifying game data. By modifying a file in present storage, it is possible to effectively modify the runtime game data that will be restored when the game attempts to load that saved game. So then we're going to something called the hex editor, where the most basic means of editing saved game files were done. For example, to give the player a large sum of money in strategy games such as Dune 2. However, as happens with game editors, dedicated game editing utilities soon became available, including functions to effectively edit saved game data for specific games, rendering hex editors largely obsolete for their purpose. If a saved game is stored in multiple files, it may also be possible to cheat simply by, in fact, mixing and matching these files. For example, if one file represented the items in a treasure chest, while another represented the player's inventory, then, in fact, the player could save the game, before and after picking up an item from that sheet and continue to play using the treasure chest file before the item was picked up and the inventory file from afterwards. So now we're going to go to basically one of the predecessors to the GameShark, and that's actually what's known as the Game Genie. And then we're going to actually go to the direct predecessor to the GameShark after this one. So let's first go to the Game Genie first, and that will be the Game Genie is a line of video game cheat cartridges originally designed by Codemasters and sold by Comerica and Galoob. Sorry. The first device in the series was actually released in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, with subsequent devices released for the Super NES, Game Boy, Genesis, and Game Gear. All Game Genie devices temporarily modified games data, allowing the player to do things unattended by developers, such as, depending on the game, cheating, manipulating various aspects of the game, and accessing unused assets and functions. 5 million units of the original Game Genie products were sold worldwide, and most video game console emulators feature actually the Game Genie code support. Emulators that gave Game Genie support also allowed a near unlimited number of codes to be entered, whereas the actual product had like upper and lower limits between 3 to 6 codes. In 1993, Codemasters began development of the Game Genie 2 with Galoob to market and distribute the device, in fact, in North America. But no Game Genie device was released for the fifth generation of game consoles. Other companies had produced similar hacking devices, such as Codebreaker, Action Repeat, and of course the GameShark. The Game Genie brand was later revived by a company called Hyperkin, who released the cheat system for newer consoles, but I actually don't know what kind of success they had. Operation design: the original Game Genie were pass-through devices that attached between your console and the cartridges. So we're still dealing with cartridges, not so much CDs. Upon starting the console, the player is presented with a menu to enter a series of characters referred to as code. Now this part is kind of like basically what the GameShark would do. So you would basically put in the codes, and then that references addresses in the ROM of the cartridge. Each code contains an integer value that is read by the system in place of the data actually presented on the cartridge. Because the Game Genie patches the program code of a game, the codes are actually sometimes referred to as a patch code. These codes have a variety of effects. Most published codes given the player some form of, invulnerability, basically infinite ammunition, level skipping, or other modifications that allow the player to be more powerful than, intended by the developers. In other cases, codes can make the game more difficult or even unlock game features that developers had scrapped and rendered unreachable in normal play. Game Genie was packaged with a booklet and codes that could be used across various games. However, the booklet became outdated as Galoob developed new codes and new games were released. In response to this, in fact, Galoob created a paid subscription service where subscribers would actually receive new code booklets quarterly. In addition, Galoob also ran advertisements in certain gaming publications, one of being GamePro, that feature codes for newer games. To create codes, it is possible to enter just random codes into the Game Genie. This evolutionary approach is equivalent to using what's known as random poke operations. Usually, entering random codes will result in no noticeable changes in the game or freezing the game, and actually possibly corrupting saved data. But a useful difference may appear in the game if this process is repeated many times over. Once a useful code is discovered, many making slight modifications to this code has a much higher probability of producing additionally useful codes. With ROM files, emulators, compilers for these gaming systems, it has become possible to reverse engineer games to find specific ROM data to modify. This information can be directly converted into the Game Genie's codes.
Action Replay is the brand name of the cheating device. Typically, cheating options include making the player character stronger with infinite lives, vulnerability, permanent power-ups, no collision detection, walk through walls, one-hit kills, super high jumps, infinite money, and stuff like that. warping directly to specific levels, the ability to download or upload or import and export saved games from or to the internet, allowing the player to save the game to disk so that the game can be restarted from that point, even if the game does not support saving. Region-free operation, loading third-party or homebrew applications and games, display of internal game data, which are not normally seen by the player, and created by Detail. GameShark is a brand name of a line of video game cheat cartridges and other products for a variety of console, video game systems, and Windows-based computers. Currently, the brand name is owned by Mad Catz, which marketed GameShark products for the Sony, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo game consoles. Players load cheat codes from the GameShark disc to cartridges onto the console's internal or external memory so that when the game is loaded, the selected cheats can be applied. When the original GameShark was released, it came with 4,000 preloaded cheat codes. Codes could be entered, but unlike the Game Genie, codes were saved in the onboard flash memory and could be accessed later rather than having to be re-entered. The cartridges also acted as memory cards, with equal or greater storage capacity to the console's first-party memory cards. It was originally released for the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation consoles in January 1996. It was a runner-up for Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best Peripheral of 1996, behind the Saturn analog controller. Models for the PlayStation had an Explorer option and allowed gamers to access most PlayStation disc files, and it was possible to view FMV files on the CD. Later models of the GameShark also had a use enhancement disc option. The enhancement disc option, which Interact sold for $4.95, allowing users to upgrade the GameShark and add codes to the code list from the disc. Only a few examples of the upgrade CDs were known to have been published. The PlayStation GameShark had the following standard features: view video image, which allowed the users to see the last image stored in the PlayStation, video RAM, view CD image, which allowed the users to search the game for CD for image files, play music, which would play CD audio, and view CD movie, a function that allowed a user to view FMV, which is full motion videos, files found on the disc. Also included was an option to use the enhancement CD in order to upgrade the GameShark and add new CD codes found on the disc. So a little bit of the brand history actually. When the Game Boy device was first released, Interact acquired the rights to sell Detail's Action Replay and Pro Action Replay devices in North America. These devices were sold under the GameShark and GameShark Pro names. Interact released GameShark devices for the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation, PlayStation 2, Saturn, Dreamcast, and Nintendo 64. After Interact's parent company, Retcon, went bankrupt, the rights to the GameShark name were acquired by Mad Catz, who relinquished the North American Action Replay distribution rights. Following this, Mad Catz sold game and save devices under GameShark name instead of traditional cheat device. And Detail marketed the Action Replay in North America directly. Since acquired by Mad Catz, the original site for GameShark has been shut down, and no products associated with the GameShark have been sold on their site.
So now we're going to talk about the GameShark Pro. The GameShark Pro series contained a feature that allowed players to find their own codes. During gameplay, the user pressed a button on the device to open a code search menu. Finding code is done by searching memory locations, either for specific values or for values that have changed in certain ways. Increased, decreased, or not changed, for example, since the last search. After the first search, subsequent searches only looked at memory locations that matched that specific criteria from the last search. By performing multiple searches, the list of matching locations is gradually reduced. Once the list is actually reasonably small, the user must then determine which of the locations is the correct one by modifying them at the time and seeing what effects it had on the game. In some games, the resulting code may only work in one level, or it may cause problems in the other parts of the game, due to memory locations being dynamically assigned. In these cases, the user has two options. attempt to locate the pointer, which is a computer term, just what it sounds like. It's just a pointer. It's just for memory location to the data block that their code is attempting to modify or change the game's programming, which is usually located in the same place every time. If a pointer is found and the device supports it, new code can be made, which determines the correct location to modify that from the pointer. If the device does not support the pointer, the game programming must be changed instead. Generally, the user must use the external tools to find the code that accesses this data. If the code is reading from memory, it may be changed to read a constant value. If it is writing, it may be changed to perform the write. These changes may not have the same overall effect as when actually modifying the game's code. For example, user may disable the routine that causes the player character to lose health when touched by enemies, only to find that the health is still lost when the character is hit by other hazards. The Nintendo 64 GameShark. The GameShark was released for the Nintendo 64 in late August 1997. The Nintendo 64 GameShark was the most popular cheating device available for the system, becoming popular after the well-known titles such as GoldenEye 007 and Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, were released. Because of the complexity nature of these games, there were many aspects of them which could be modified to produce unique effects. For example, unused content was discovered, such as a distant tower on the dam level of GoldenEye 007. The Nintendo 64 GameShark Pro featured an in-game code search menu. Versions 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 had a parallel port on the back, allowing the device to be connected to a PC with a program called a Shark Link. This was intended primarily to make entering a large amount of codes easier, but was also used for advanced hacking. The in-game code search required that the expansion pack (PAK) be installed, and that the game did not actually use the PAK pack for memory. The Nintendo 64 GameShark also bypassed the console's region lockout, allowing games from any region to be played on the same unit. Now, the PlayStation had their GameShark Pro, the original hardware based on the GameShark for the PlayStation. The PlayStation GameShark Pro contained much of the same functionalities of the standard PlayStation GameShark, as well as unique features only found on the Pro. The advanced features were code creation, which gave users the option to save newly created codes to a standard PlayStation memory card to share with others. The VM, or virtual RAM, which gave users access to an onboard memory card feature where they could store up to actually 8 full memory cards worth of saves. Back in the day, your memory cards were very limited in a save file, so you usually would typically have at least 2, just because if you had any real library, you would just use them all up in saves. The Shark Link software suffered actually from the same problems that plagued the Nintendo 64 versions. The final firmware software update for the PlayStation GameShark Pro hardware was actually version 3.2, which was made available on physical media title The Big Wave 4. Now we're going to talk about the GameShark CDX. With the introduction of the 9000 model of the PlayStation, the parallel port was removed. This had been the only way to use the GameShark, as it plugged directly into that port. Interact then created a GameShark that did not need it. The GameShark CDX came with a boot CD along with a card resembling basically a standard memory card, which stored the code even through the CDX. Even though the CDX could not be upgraded, it is not known if Interact created an upgrade for the CDX. The CDX is not compatible with any of the PS2 systems. That's where this comes in, the GameShark 2. The GameShark 2 was very much like the CDX. The CDX GameShark that came out for the original PlayStation, but the PlayStation 2, but this one was for the PlayStation 2. It even included features that could only be found on the GameShark Pro. But like the CDX GameShark that came out for the original PlayStation, codes could be saved on a memory card, one which resembled that came with the CDX version. It was released the fall of 2000 and included a CD-only GameShark 2 for the original PlayStation 2, containing a whopping 14,000 codes.
So on to the more popular of all of the Game Sharks, the Game Shark for the Game Boy. Released in 1998, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, it came preloaded with codes for 158 games. This list was revised with new games with each Game Shark Vision/revision. As well as the ability to add your own game folders and codes. Codes were saved as a string of hex values that represented a specific game state or attribute at a specific memory location within the game ROM. When the Game Boy attempted to execute code at said memory address, the Game Shark would overwrite it with its own modified code. This allowed for everything from invincibility, extra lives, infinite ammo, rapid fire, sprite modifications, and much more. With a feature called Snapshot, a player could take a ROM image of the current state of the game attached game cartridge. The result would be the ability to restore the game state to a single previous snapshot, a precursor of sorts to save states more commonly enjoyed by modern ROM emulation software. With version 3.1 revision, snapshots could also be saved or downloaded from the PC via the included cable that connected to the link cable port on the Game Boy and a PC printer/parallel port. Game cartridges that featured a save function utilized a backup battery in order to prevent volatile RAM from losing power when the Game Boy was switched off. However, as these batteries ran dry, the ability to save game data became impossible. The Game Shark, on the other hand, utilized non-volatile memory and didn't require a battery backup, so snapshots of the game codes could be stored indefinitely. A Game Shark was known as a temporary workaround for saving games with depleted backup batteries. GameShark PC software allowed the creation and management of codes on the PC profiles, even GameShark menu wallpapers and themes when used with Game Boy Color. There were also message boards where players could share codes and game snapshots with each other. Game Trainer allowed the player to find new cheat codes by comparing actively running codes with recent changes in the game state. For instance, a player would turn on the Game Trainer, saving the current game states much like a snapshot. If Mario were to take damage from an enemy, a hex value would change in the game code, using causing Mario to shrink or die. The player would then have the Game Trainer search for the hex changes, sometimes in the hundreds depending on of the game's complexity. Since Mario took damage through trial and error, this list can be further reduced until the specific hex value of Mario's damage state is found. A cheat code could then be saved to keep Mario's health state from changing, thus preventing him from taking damage. One such popular use of GameShark for the Game Boy was unlocking disabled content by using cheat codes to modify a moveset of Pokemon Yellow's Pikachu to include the move Surf. It would unlock a Surfing Pikachu minigame. A feature that was previously required a lengthy and obscure process in Pokemon Stadium, while the Pokemon Yellow cartridge was inserted in the N64 transfer pack. A Game Shark was the only way to unlock the mythical Pokemon Mew without knowledge of a very tricky game exploit. or an incredibly rare Nintendo World Mew distribution event. Subsequently, a GameShark was also the only way to unlock the mythical Pokemon Celebi from the second generation of Pokemon games, Silver, Gold, and Crystal. And Pokemon Stadium 2, this was because the distribution method to catch the mythical Pokemon was disabled in North America due to hardware limitations. A Japanese cell phone link cable was required. Attempting to use a GameShark with the Nintendo 64 transfer pack would result in Pokemon Stadium claiming the inserted cartridge was corrupted. However, if the player saved the Pokemon game while GameShark cheats were enabled, they would be able to save the game cartridge permanently, thus allowing the modifications to Pokemon Stadium's Game Boy cartridge. Check this could lead to some unusual in-game battle animations if Pokemon were given moves they couldn't normally perform. A booklet was included with GameShark version 3.1 with over 2,000 codes modifying Pokemon games and their monsters. The GameShark for the Game Boy can also be used with the Game Boy Advance as long as the cartridge connected is either for Game Boy or for Game Boy Color. It cannot be used for Game Boy Advance cartridges. The original Game Boy GameShark could be used with Game Boy Color, which is obviously predated. However, due to the low height of the outside cartridge slot, the connected game cartridge would be pushed outward by the Game Boy Color's battery compartment, which, unlike those of previous Game Boy models, curved outward from the rear surface of the device. The later GameShark Pro featured a longer cartridge, which held the connected game cartridge higher as to avoid this flaw.
So now we're going to move on to basically kind of the last bit of this. And it's going to be kind of like their media, because they did actually have there was like a magazine publication deal going on. So we're going to talk about that here. Almost as soon as the GameShark made its appearance on the store shelves, the new codes began to appear in the gaming magazines of the day in order to create more interest, as well as a way to get the word out on their new products. Interact created a newsletter called Dangerous Waters, which was published 8 times a year starting in 1996, and featured new codes, a phone number which players could call for the up to the minute latest codes, and a website for exclusive codes that could only be accessed by those with a full Dangerous Waters membership. GameShark.com also first appeared on the net around this time. Due to the increasing popularity of Dangerous Waters, it went from a black and white, get this, 8-page newsletter, that's crazy, to a full color bi-monthly by 1999, and featured game reviews as well as tricks. Then in June 2000, Dangerous Waters was transformed into a full-fledged magazine called GameShark Magazine and continued to be published bi-monthly, reaching up to 20 pages long and containing many more codes. However, due to problems with Mad Catz magazine, GameShark Magazine ceased publication with the holiday 2001 issue. This last issue was a double issue containing the last GameShark magazine issue, as well as a special issue by, of all people, IGN, as it was their 2001 buyer's guide. It featured new games and systems that were available at the time. It also included a GameShark CD sampler disc, which featured codes for the PlayStation 2, as well as a handful of game saves. And that is that's GameShark.
Yeah, and all the actual replay and all of their different variants, including Game Genie.
I thought it would be an interesting episode to have done this, because like we use GameShark.
Oh God, yeah, especially when we were younger.
Especially with the PlayStation and PS2.
Well, I was more PS2 and Nintendo 64.
I just remember that like it had this most basic interface, and like I remember like to make selections, you just push down and you hear this bloop bloop bloop, like a real like
you could load
piercing sound,
different
bloop, bloop, bloop.
like codes. You could pick them, and then it would load all of those up at one time.
But it was cool. You could
fuck your game up though too, and it would corrupt your data. So if you really loved that game, you better have beaten it before and let everyone know prior to have those bragging rights. Because if you cheat in that game and it corrupts your data, it's done.
I just wanted to grab the
I mean,
the
you only u-
cutscenes.
yeah, I was gonna say you only used it to watch your cutscenes
Cutscenes,
for
whatever.
Xenogears.
Everything didn't matter.
Yeah.
Xenogears.
Well, Xenogears was your main one that I remember watching.
I remember literally having even though it was the opening sequence from Final Fantasy 8, just that repeat. Even though because I don't want to have to restart the game every single time, but I wanted to watch that repeat, and I didn't want to wait for the splash screen because it just eventually would start, but you had to like be on the start menu, and then I believe it just cuts into that. So I would just go and play that instead. I was like, then you could literally pull the entire soundtrack
Oh yeah.
and literally just listen to the music.
Yeah.
Like
It would play it in the audio format of
Yeah.
the old Sony,
it
which
organized it
Yeah.
too. It was crazy. Oh yeah. So I mean, I got great memories of
yeah, I think anyone in like their mid to late 20s or
Yeah.
even like their early 30s, like us, would know and has used one of these at some point. Especially if you're even like a mild Pokemon fan and have touched the DS, you know.
Yeah, and we just like I said, we thought this would be an interesting topic. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I give the GameShark 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah, 10 out of 10 all
Like
day.
it was
Except for when it messed up
Well,
my game and
yeah.
screwed up my saves.
yeah. You
I
remember
wanted to slap someone, but
remember you had to put in the right numbers. Like
well, no. Sometimes you could pick them, and it would just
Hmm.
screw up your game data, or you would like fall through the floor because you would get hit,
yeah,
and then you would clip through because
Yeah.
you were supposed to die.
that's like what happened with like games where you're supposed to die at the beginning,
Yeah,
and
and
then
you just
but
kill the guy, and
you were
it's
just
like
super.
where do we
Yeah,
go?
and you were just super powered, and you're just like, oops, and they're like, oh, you weren't supposed to.
Dude,
Kill.
you were supposed to be dead.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that was a we die moment. Like,
Yeah, I didn't know.
I didn't know that has happened.
I did that in Final Fantasy VII.
It's like, yeah, but say numerous Final Fantasies, right? Like,
Yeah, I think almost everyone dies at the very beginning.
at least the beginning. Like you just assume you die. It's like, oh, here's the big boss. You die. Oh, game begins.
But yeah, so I think that was it on our
Yeah.
on our game our game cheat devices and whatnot.
Yeah. Remember, don't cheat, kids.
No, cheating is bad.
Cheating's bad. But yeah. So we thought we enjoyed looking this stuff up.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed listening to us. I know it's a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So, but we are. I think we're in the next episode. It's gonna be our super casual episode.
Yeah,
We're just
our
gonna
first one.
talk about. We're gonna bring a bunch of probably anime stuff.
Yeah,
I believe.
just essentially the
And
state of
then we're
anime.
just gonna
and
talk
yeah.
about like. So be
Here.
prepared for that. It's almost gonna be just this
Raw. It's
for
gonna be
like-
raw, like
for
what
like-
we do before
for an hour.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be this like.
But all right, guys.
But
then-
all right,
yeah,
thanks.
to the next one.
Awesome, you guys are great. We love you. We're getting good amount of views now. So,
Feedback and everything, so we love it.
and we're getting feedback. And again, check out our Instagram
Yeah.
and message us. We'd love to hear from you, especially this guy.
Yeah,
He's waiting
yeah, definitely.
in the corner
Always.
in the dark alley. Like so. All right, so that will be our episode. So long and bye.
Bye.